Your brain is your greatest tool, and today we're gonna talk about how to train your brain just like a professional athlete, and in my case, would help me secure one of the biggest medals of my career. We're gonna talk about all the different pieces that go into winning the Pan American Games, specifically on all the mental adjustments I had to make during one of the most challenging parts of my life. Coach Cam fam, we're back. Let's talk about how to train your brain just like a professional athlete and to make all the biggest dreams actually happen. Let's get into it. But let's get something straight. It took me a long time to get to the point where I could sustain a mental training regimen that's this rigorous in addition to what I'm doing physically. Mental training is amazing, but as a mental training coach, I know that it'll expose any lack of discipline in all the different areas of your life. So starting off with all three of these things for you might not be the best thing, especially if you're not used to this type of training before. It's like going for a marathon run, but only running 1 mile every single day. Now make sure that you start with one of the three different points, and that will help you build over the course of time. The reason why all of these things might sound simple is because I had a lot of depth in each one of the categories, and to make sure I could reiterate those points would help me be the most successful. Let's start with the first one. With mantras, what you should take away is coming up with an I am who I am, and writing down about 10 different things that I am this, or what makes you, you. Reiterating on those points and reading those points will make sure that you stay focused on being present and on you, and making sure that you're building those things every single day. Now, the second piece with journaling, write down what happens after each practice. That is the great starting point. What you did in each practice, what you improved on, what did coach tell you to improve on, what you're doing well after those practices, and start there. Then from there, you can build onto different aspects or components. Finally, with visualization, I'm gonna make a separate amazing video on the different levels of visualization. But for you, it should start with, what does it feel like to be successful in your sport? What does it feel like when you make the basket? What does it feel like when you score a touchdown, when you score the goal, or in my case, score the technique, the punch, the kick, the takedown, whatever else it might be? Focus on that feeling and remind yourself of what it feels like to be successful so that you can go repeat that in your day-to-day practices. So let's set the scene. In 2019, I qualified for the Pan American Games, which is an event that happens every 4 years, just like the Olympic Games, and consists of a whole bunch of different sports, whether it's Olympic sports, and in this case, some of the demonstration sports, which at that time, karate was included in. Now, karate's been a Pan American Games sport for a very long time, which makes it the pinnacle for our sport, especially seeing that it's a game sport across all the different continents, with the European Games, Asian Games, African Games, and in this case, the Pan American Games. There was a lot of pressure going into that moment, especially because the Olympics was happening right after it, and they were looking at this event as one of the qualification events for how to get to the Olympics. There was a lot of pressure, and honest to God, I felt it. I had gone to the previous nationals and got the gold medal, but there was a lot of things that I was still struggling with, whether it was how to perform, putting pressure on myself for what to do within it all, being one of the top athletes in the country and hoping that I could get this. And honestly, to that point, I hadn't won a gold medal at the Pan American Championships, which happens every year. It's kind of a direct indicator of what's going to happen at the Pan American Games. Now, I'm gonna reiterate that the pressure of this event was immense at the time. A lot of teammates were actually looking to compete against each other. Other countries were pushing extremely hard, and even some things were going on behind the scenes to help shift and change things to make sure that athletes could qualify for the Olympic Games. So at this point in time, I was really struggling with making sure my own voice was different from everything else happening in my environments. Now, the three different parts that came into it were, number one, finding my own voice. Number two, making sure that I'm staying on track. And three, seeing my success. Now, the first part revolves around me identifying myself. Now, a lot of sports psychologists or mental trainers will talk about core values and what's important to you. And yes, those are level one, but having a way of reminding yourself of those things every single day is a challenge. A lot of people thought that, yeah, you just say what your core values are and they just stick with you. But in the reality is environments change people and stress changes athletes all the time. So finding a way to make sure that I could stay consistent with reminding myself of who I am and how I'm going to respond to these different situations in a healthy way that's building myself and then also the people around me was through mantras. I basically had a list of about 20 mantras that I would tell myself every day when I woke up and every day when I went to bed to make sure that I would remind myself of all the different things that were going on. In some cases, as I was getting closer to the event itself, I'd actually have those mantras as a part of my pre-warm-up routine for practice. So I would go through everything I needed to, but then also run through that list of mantras to say that every single drill is based off of what I'm saying on that sheet. It's not something that my coach is saying that I have to perform a certain way or anything else that's happening in the environment. I wanted to stay focused on those specific things. Now, the second point was specific to making sure that I could stay focused and let go of each practice. It's really easy to get caught up in the domino effect of one practice going bad, next practice going well, but still feeling bad about the first thing, and then all these different things to confuse yourself. So after each practice, I had the intentions of focusing on what I'm improving on and what I'm learning. So if something went well in practice, I'm noting that thing down and I would actually write it out. Finally, if there was something that didn't go well, I would find out what the solution is to that thing or what I'm learning in that case. So the next practice, then I'm open to what's able to happen next. And then I'm building over the course of every single practice. If there was a session that didn't go well with my sparring, perfect. That is an opportunity to learn and grow for the next thing, but I'm actually writing out what they would happen. At the end of each week, I'd actually go through my whole notebook. I would set aside 30 minutes and actually look for every single thing that I wrote down to then have it transfer over into the following week itself. Now, the third part was seeing my own success. Visualization has a few different components to it or different levels to it. In this case, I had already been someone that sits and breathes and sees what the match plays out to be and all that kind of stuff, and I didn't feel like it was happening. I was hitting a mental block to where I would see my success not happening in those cases. So I modified it to where I wrote out how my competition day was actually going to go. From every detail of the warm-up and how I'd feel in each match, who I was going up against, what the score was, and even what I would be doing after my competition was done, down to the T of what I would be talking to on the phone with my dad after it was. Now, after I wrote out everything, I recorded myself actually running through that whole competition day, reading everything that I had written down. And at that point, I listened to it every single night. For about 4 weeks leading up to the event itself, I listened to that recording religiously every single night, following my own voice and what was going to happen and how the competition day was going to play out. Now, that's the craziest part because a lot of the things that happened in the event itself played very, very similar to what my recording was. Even the people that were in my chart, in my bracket, which I had no control over, were the same people that I actually visualized going up against at that time. So yes, the training that I had physically between on the mat, in the gym, and everything else helped me be the most prepared I could be physically. But those 3 points made the difference for this competition in particular. It was the highest pressure, highest stress event that I'd ever competed at up until that moment. And these are the different anchor points that made sure I could stay focused in the process, especially with all the different challenges going on in my life at that time. Now, how did the tournament play out? I already said it before, people that were in my pool were the same ones that I saw in the actual visualization that I did. But then everything had happened. I had come back from a deficit in one match. One match I felt like a god and just absolutely cooked. The next match was a very close match that was a stalemate right till the very end where I found the scoring opportunity. Now, these are all things I visualized except for the final itself. Now, it's one of the coolest experiences having a stadium cheering for you, even in a separate country. But the final didn't go my way. I had lost the match by, again, a very decisive score at the very end of the match. But I remember leaving that mat and looking back at everything and being grateful for that moment. Now, the reason why that stands out is because there was a lot of emotions I had because I was bummed. I made mistakes to then not secure the gold medal at the Pan American Games, which I was so looking forward to, especially with my teammates cheering me on and being in that situation. But I remember I paused as we were bowing out to leave the stage, where I just said thank you, and I was very grateful for that opportunity because everything was left. Everything that I had, all the effort, all the thinking, everything was left in that moment. And I continued with the same process that I had visualized before. I went through my post-performance, my cool down, I called my parents, I said all this stuff, all that great stuff. Now the craziest part is, about 2 months later, I found out that the gold medal had been stripped from the other athlete because they were tested for banned substances. After each one of these major events, we get tested for doping and drugs and all that kind of stuff. And in that particular moment, the gold medal was stripped and then passed over to me. Now, as an athlete, of course, it feels good to win a gold medal, but not the best in that circumstance because you want to earn it. And for me, one of my core values is beating people because I have that skill, not for any other reason. I wanted to be better than everybody, and that's why I got the gold medal. But in this case, I had to hold myself back and remember that it was almost like a reward for sticking to my plan, my process, and being grateful for everything rather than greedy for anything else. So for you, having mantras or setting something aside to write down I am who I am and all the different components that go into it is great. So then use that one thing. The next piece would be making sure that you're recovering or writing down what you're doing after every single practice for a few weeks at a time, but then changing what that thing is. So you could say, I'm learning this for 2 weeks after every single practice. Then after that, for the next 2 weeks, shift it over to what I enjoyed about practice today. And keep switching it over just like that so you don't burn yourself out. Now, when it comes to visualization, it's tricky, and I'm going to be making a separate video about how to visualize and how to do it correctly. But in this case, yes, recording your own voice going over a competition day is one thing, but it took a lot of time for me to get to that point to where I could go through it and not beat myself up or come up with all the ways that someone else could beat me and all those different things that go into competition. So what I would start with is, what's the feeling of success? What does it feel like when you're successful, or when you score a point or make a basket or score a touchdown or whatever that feeling is, and remind yourself of what it feels like to be successful and the different components that go into it. When I'm doing a punch, I don't think about just the punch landing. I think about how I'm setting up. I think about where the distance is. I think about exactly what punch it is. I think about what color my gloves are. I think about what the impact is like, and all the different components that go into securing the score itself, and what the feeling of gratification, good stuff that is, that after that thing happens. So now you know what it looks like to mentally train like a professional athlete to secure the utmost success. Now it's your turn to take one thing from this video and apply it to your day-to-day training to make sure you are leveling up as much as possible. Like always, like, share, subscribe, get the message out so we can help more athletes become the best versions of themselves to become better people. Till next time, Coach Cam fam, let's get it.